Welcome in to the Bobby Carpenter Show. It's a Friday. It's a football Friday. It is a Buckeye game week. We are, as we're shooting this, maybe 26 hours away from the 3:30 kickoff, which will be on CBS as Ohio State takes on Akron. 50-point favorites in the shoe. Very exciting stuff. And got a lot of things to get to today. We've got Jacob Hester coming up here in the next block. He's out in Vegas, going to talk a little bit about that USC-LSU game, plus a lot of the other big games on the slate this weekend. Going to go through, break down a little bit of Ohio State-Akron later as well, dive in, really get into the details of that. There's also some news that the NCAA has kind of leaked out of some redshirt rules that will break down what that could potentially mean for the Buckeyes as well. But I want to start off the jump with this. Ohio State has a very rich football tradition. They've got a lot of things that many other schools don't have, and they have one thing that no other school has, and I'm guessing probably never will have, because there's been the opportunity to get it, and they've almost set a precedent that will never happen again. They have Archie Griffin, two-time Heisman Trophy winner. And Archie got a statue at the Rose Bowl out in Pasadena, and they just married and gave him a twin statue, as you just saw right there at Ohio Stadium, as they unveiled it today. Ross Bjork was there, did a great job. President Ted Carter did a great job. It was pretty tremendous, and getting a chance to be a part of it, see it, everything that ultimately went into it. Archie spoke so eloquently, and this flags on the 50th anniversary of that first Heisman Trophy. Incredibly exciting. One of the great ambassadors of Ohio State, and now they're in the North Rotunda between that and the stadium and the Jesse Owens Memorial, an iconic statue of Mr. Two-Time.
Rightly so. You know, it's always fun, like when you go to the Woody Hayes Athletic Center and there's a big statue of Woody, and then you enter with all the different trophies. And
by the way, how about Woody's forward lean on that statue?
I know, just like leaning into you. Oh, yeah, just like leaning into you, like he's actually going to say something just right out of that. And one, I'm happy, obviously, that they had the Rose Bowl, but it means more for everybody that walks in and out of that stadium, and then that rotunda, which in and of itself is beautiful. It's just great that people can recognize him for his greatness on the field, but as you and I know, Bob, he's a greater person off the field and a great ambassador for Ohio State in college football.
He's been tremendous, and he spoke so eloquently, and they asked, what – number one, he talked about three people in his life that couldn't be there, his parents and Woody, and what they meant to him. Obviously honored his teammates from both Eastmore and also Ohio State, and looking at guy from Columbus, born in University Hospital, and being able to reach these great heights, and truly one of the most humble people you will be around. And he was asked the question, when people see this statue, what do you want them to think? And it was a response that only Archie could give, after he gave credit to John Hicks and all his offensive linemen. They were all Americans and great players. Because I hope that they see this as a representation of the teamwork, of the great teams we were a part of, and it starts a conversation about that, because the Heisman Trophy wasn't just for me. It was for the university. It was for the fans. It was for everybody to enjoy. And I was simply the representative of that great team, those great teams that he was on, to be a part of it. So, and you've been around him, Shags. I mean,
oh yeah, he's amazing.
He thanked every fan for all the conversations, all the talks, the dinners, the meals, everything that he's got to share for keeping the memory of those teams alive. And to think that it's been 50 years since his first one in 1974, man, it's time flies. It goes very fast.
You know what? They played a trailer that I shared. It was Ohio State one, and he was narrating it for like a minute 45. And to your point, Bob, regardless of what guys do throughout the season, they're always a representative of that year. You and myself and AJ and all the guys that we had, all the first rounders and all their accolades, you go right back to the 05 team and the team that won the national championship in 02 or 14, right? It's the team that always goes back to that, but it also is all the memories and lifelong friendships that you have with your teammates. And he's the embodiment of that. And that's what that statue represents. Of course, it would be him that would say that, but it makes complete sense. And also it gives people to go back and actually appreciate all the great things of different generations of Buckeye football.
All right, talk a little bit about the games Thursday night that we saw. couple good ones. That North Dakota State, Colorado.
Hey.
I mean, some people kept saying, they'll blow them out. Colorado has way better players. They had the two best players on the field by far, Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. Very, very good. But outside of that, I thought Colorado was outmatched when you start talking about North Dakota State. If you line up, Schlegs, on your own 40-ish yard line in the middle of a game, going for it on a 4th and 1 and get stuffed to the point where they didn't even bring out the chains. They didn't even measure it. I'm not certain what's going to happen with Nebraska next week, but I do not believe it's going to be good for Colorado.
There was a couple of things in here. I thought the defense played better in the second half. They had that really big first big play on an angle route on a linebacker, which kind of sucks for you. There was like 70 yards, boom, right down, and they were able to score off that. There's the game management at the end of the game, right? You're already up, you're going down, you throw the ball. And again, they want to put it Shedeur's hands. I understand that, but you also have to win the game. And you gave them an opportunity to go down. They end up catching it on the 4-yard line instead of batting it down. Yeah, Travis Hunter bat that thing down like he knows. But he had a great game. Shedeur had a great game. It's going to be difficult, right? Because we go back and they got all these guys from the portal on the offensive line. They're starting All-American freshmen, right? I think the only guy they had back was their center. So they got some work to do up front. They only rushed the football for 59 yards. That's going to be tough sledding in the Big 12 when everybody knows they're going to be able to pass the ball, that you're going to pass the ball regardless of how good Shedeur is. And he is really good. He made some throws, man, that were obviously the hardest route in college football is hash to sideline, right? That's why we give that up when you're playing cover 3. It's the hardest throw, and it is a beeline. He throws a dart, and you can – he is, man. He's a very, very good quarterback.
He did it. The best thing Deion might be doing for his son is showing people that he can play with terrible protection. He's getting shelled, and he's standing in the pocket, delivering the ball. Shedeur played really, really well. Did a great job. There was a rock fight that took place up in Minnesota between North Carolina and Minnesota. Minnesota missing a 27-yard field goal earlier in the game, missing one late that would have ultimately won it. And then another game that was really tight. NC State against Western Carolina tied.
The Catamounts, baby. The Catamounts.
Do you know what city Western Carolina, or town, city's a loose term, Western Carolina is in?
I used to know this because I know App State's in Boone.
Yep.
Crap on a stick. No, go give it to me.
𝗟𝗏𝗄, North Carolina, Schlegs. Yeah. I have been there. My buddy played point guard there for the basketball team for 4 years and went down one time. One of our good buddies who works with the New England Patriots, who was a manager for us, actually was a GA there as well. Yeah, Mr. Pat Stewart was actually a graduate assistant there for a season. So that was a tight one. NC State ends up pulling away at the end, but Western Carolina taking the lead into the fourth quarter, tied at halftime. That would have been an absolute disaster for the ACC should they have lost that after losing Florida State to Georgia Tech. It looks like Clemson's going to go down to Georgia. Now, that could always change, but that's the expected result, obviously, now. And then you would have had that NC State, who was also ranked, getting beat by an FCS school. Not a great look on the opening weekend. Would have been really rough. All right, we got Jacob Hester coming up next. But first, before we get to that, just want to send prayers, thoughts. I'd ask everybody, out there, to pray for the family of Johnny Gaudreau. He and his brother were hit by a drunk driver in their hometown outside of in southern New Jersey, outside of Philadelphia, late last night. They were there for their sister's wedding, and so I cannot imagine the family of what they're going through, the grief that they have, and how devastating that is. With everybody coming to town for what they thought was going to be a celebration today, and turns out to be a memorial to her two brothers, to lose them on the same day. So devastating loss. It's tough here in Ohio, especially in the city of Columbus. Johnny Gaudreau, great guy, came here from Calgary, turned down more money other places because he wanted to live in Columbus, Ohio. He wanted to be a part of this community because he'd heard so many great things about it from some of his friends that had lived and played here. So a devastating loss, and prayers go out to his family as they're dealing with a terrible, terrible tragedy. So to try to transition from that, we've got our guy, Jacob Hester, up next. He's out in Vegas. He's going to give us everything we need to know here on the Bobby Carpenter Show.
We were called soft last year. You don't want to be soft, especially when you come to the playoffs. So that's going to be a process throughout this season of establishing us as a harder team here in the
They're off in the Kentucky Derby as Authentic takes them around the far turn. Tis the Laws making his move now, and they're into the stretch. These two stride for stride. Authentic, tis the Law. Here's the wire. Authentic has won the Kentucky Derby.
I don't buy into this nonsense, this conspiracy nonsense that he's got his money and he's dogging it. That's ridiculous.
Oh, now I get to welcome in one of my good friends, guy that I see all the time. He's out there in Vegas. I mean, they probably just pulled him off the craps table to get him in here. You know that he loves to gamble, throw some shekels down, get some futures on LSU. But my guy, Jacob Hester, star of Off the Bench, XM Radio, can be seen all over the place and heard through airways. Hess, how are we doing out there in Sin City?
What is up, my fellow meatheads? It is so good to be with y'all. You are two of my favorites. And so, I mean, Schlegs, the background there is impeccable. I wish I had something like that. I don't have anything like that to work with. That's why you look better than me with your shirt off. But glad to be with y'all. There's a lot of purple and gold here in Las Vegas, Bobby, as you can imagine. It wasn't the craps table. I was playing a little roulette. You know, I got done with my show a couple of minutes ago. I was walking up to the room. I put $5. I had a $10 bill, right? I put 5 on red 18. I put 5 on black 28, red 18 hits, $180 in the pocket. Let's go.
I mean, does it get any better than that, Hester? I mean, you're the guy. You got the number 18 jersey. That is a sacred jersey at LSU. You got to wear that thing. Normally I get to see that in your background. So coming up for you today. Before we get to some of this LSU-USC game, which I'm sure is going to be a fantastic matchup, I know you're a big fan of the gap scheme runs. You're a big fan of teams with grit. Yeah. Colorado, I thought, had better players than North Dakota State. I think they only have 2 in Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, because I watched the North Dakota State team. The coach, they're running those gap scheme runs downhill, and they were picking up some yardage now.
Yeah, that's who they are. And you know me, I love gap scheme. I love power. I love counter. And North Dakota State's a physical football team. They're the second best team in the FCS. We know who they are. They're going to run the football, 227 yards per game on the ground a year ago. You kind of knew Colorado was going to struggle. They were 110th in giving up yards on the ground a year ago. If I'm a Colorado fan, I'm a little bit nervous. And I agree with y'all. They for sure had the 2 best players, but they had that in every game almost last year with Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders. Nothing changed. It looked the same. Those guys had to go out there and make incredible plays just to give their team a chance at victory. When you start playing some of those teams in the Big 12, guys, they run the football. The Big 12 is not like the Big 12 when all of us were playing, where it was run and gun. They got some of the best running backs, maybe the best group of running backs of any conference in America. Colorado, they won, but they did not show me that they've changed their ways at all.
What are some things that, I mean, we saw Georgia Tech beat Florida State. You saw some really close games, this one being one, the North Dakota State, Colorado. What are you kind of seeing right now as the landscape of college football has changed, the transfer portal? You know, last year Michigan had a bunch of senior veteran guys. Is there something that you're kind of seeing right now going into this week 1 slate of games that you really were unsure of leading into the season?
You know, let's go back to the schematics of what we saw like last night. And let's go back and take a look at what we saw in week 0. You mentioned Georgia Tech. Hell, go back and look at the Michigan team. Look at the Georgia teams that won back-to-back championships. I think we're seeing the game get back to closer to a version of the game that we played in college football, where you've got more downhill running. You are going to find ways to be creative to run those gap schemes. You don't have to line up in 21 personnel. Now, I wish you would, because it would make my position come back in football, but teams are doing it out of 11 personnel. Go watch Tennessee. Go watch Ole Miss. Go watch Jeff Levy last year at Oklahoma, now at Mississippi State. everybody just assumes because they live in 11 personnel that they're air raids. Like, no, they run downhill. They just find a way out of 11 personnel to run the runs that we're talking about. And that's the trend that I'm noticing. And y'all know this better than I do. Linebackers now, they don't look like y'all. They don't look like AJ Hawk. They don't look like James Laurinaitis. They're like 210, 215 pounds because the game was going sideways. Well, now it's going north and south again. And that's why you see teams like a Michigan be able to go out there and be successful. Ohio State's going to run the hell out of the football this year. We all know that with Chip Kelly. It's your strongest room, maybe, with the two guys that you have. We know Will Howard's going to run the football as well. So all of these teams, right? I'm not saying you can't go be successful running the air raid, but the best teams right now are realizing that you have to get back to a little old school, too gritty to be pretty football. And we're seeing that here in week 0. We saw it last night in week 1, and I assume that's going to continue in week number 1 with some of the matchups we have coming up.
Hey, I know last year you were all over NC State. That was your squad. Dark horse. This year, people are still talking about them. Maybe dark horse. You might be a little more on Vatek. Hester, last night, I was like not really paying attention to the game. My quad box, like the 2 on the top, Colorado, North Dakota State, Minnesota, North Carolina. And then I checked down to the Western Carolina NC State score. I'm like, what the heck is going on? I mean, what happened right there? NC State was able to get it right late in the game, but that was something for the ACC that could have been disastrous.
It absolutely could have been. And it was 2 years ago that I was really on NC State. I mean, I think I called them a playoff team potentially 2 years ago. Devin Leary was coming back, and NC State is that team that just you give yourself over to time and time again, and they get like to 8 or 9 wins, and they can't get over that speed bump. They just can't for whatever reason. This year I said, absolutely not. I am not doing it again. You are not going to fool me. And thank goodness I didn't go all offseason. I've kind of saved that for Iowa, by the way. But yeah, NC State, I don't know what it is, Bobby. They have nice seasons. They have nice seasons. They don't have great seasons. They don't have elite seasons. And it feels like they have been so close to getting to that point. But as we all know, it doesn't just happen. Like, you have got to do whatever the extra mile is to get there. And for whatever reason, again, they just haven't been able to do it. I mean, they were in real jeopardy. Don't let the final score fool you. That thing was close in the fourth quarter. And the ACC right now feels wide open to me. I can't wait to see what Clemson looks like against Georgia, because Georgia Tech's coming. I think in like North Carolina going on the road, it was a rock fight, which, I love a good rock fight, but they came out victorious. Now they lost Max Johnson, so we'll see what that injury looks like. But the ACC is just wide open right now. Hell, Boston College is going to give Florida State headaches. They've got a dual threat quarterback. They run a lot of the same stuff that Georgia Tech does. They beat SMU. We talked about that bowl game, Bobby, the other day. They took it to SMU in a bowl game. I think it was a Fenway Bowl. It was a home game for them, basically, but it doesn't matter. They play the same style. So the ACC right now, I have no idea who is going to be the candidate if Georgia does to Clemson what we think might happen.
Man, you're a fantastic meathead. I love this. So now OU's in the SEC. They're playing Temple. We love Temple. I only love Temple because Stan Drayton is there. Right. And Chris Phelan's the strength coach. He was at Ohio State. Great dude. You got Oklahoma. You got Brent Venables, 3rd year, terrible first year. Last year went 10-3. Lost Dylan Gabriel, revamping their entire offensive line, but they got basically their entire defensive unit back. What are you expecting them being able to do this year in the SEC?
I think Oklahoma is going to be a really good football team, but the record's not going to show it because they have a murderer's row at the end of the season. I mean, they have games at LSU, at Alabama. They've got Missouri. They got Ole Miss. I mean, for their last 5 games, you could stack it up against anybody in the country. So it's kind of one of those weird situations, Schlags, where I think they're going to be really good, but it might be 8-4, even though the record might not show how good they truly are. It is a brutal schedule. We're not even talking about Tennessee and Texas that they have earlier in the season. I think Jackson Arnold's a really talented player. He's got to make strides. He's a young football player. But Oklahoma, if you're a Sooner fan, don't panic. The product is good, and the SEC did you absolutely no favors with the schedule. I mean, none. Texas, a lot of favors. Oklahoma, 0.
I mean, I look at, in the SEC, Oklahoma and Florida, you look at their schedules, like why did they just jam all the tough teams, like clustered them up too, so they really don't get a lot of space. Yeah.
Well, it couldn't happen to a better person than Florida, but other than that, I mean,
I know. Hey, listen, I thought your boy Sunbelt Billy, that's what you're calling him, right? I mean, are you You coming off the wagon? That's your guy.
I haven't been known to call him that, but here in Louisiana, that name might be thrown out there. Yes.
All right. Well, hey, we're gonna take a quick break here. Coming back, I want to get your thoughts on this LSU USC game. Probably one of the biggest games of the weekend. Also, a couple other games out there. Stay locked in here on the Bobby Carpenter Show.
Well, how do they know I'm doing this? Did somebody leak this out?
It's social media.
Oh.
That's the way social media works now.
I thought maybe you were just running that yap.
Welcome to Big Play, a sports media team that started back in 2014, and now we're not in a garage. Look at us, incorporating some of Cleveland's favorite sports personalities, bringing you fun and compelling content from downtown Cleveland. Coming to you live from the shores of Lake Erie and Burke Lakefront Airport, join Team Big Play for all the best sports talk in Ohio. Check us out on social media at Big Play, bringing you fun and compelling content from downtown Cleveland.
All right, we got a huge host of games this weekend, and we've got the right guy here to break them down for us. He's out there in Vegas. He's been making bets all over the place. Probably ran into Ben Stevens somewhere behind a hotel, putting some bets in with him. Hester, you've got your purple LSU gear on. It's going to be a nice night game. Stadium out there is fantastic. How do you see this game breaking out with the Trojans and the Tigers?
Yeah, typically, I don't try to wear LSU stuff. I try to, not be biased in my opinion. But this weekend, I think I can, being able to call the game. I'm going to be like Bobby Carpenter. I'm going to be a homer here for this game. But when you look at the individual matchups, it's like you go position by position. It's really strange because like LSU strengths and USC strengths are going to go against each other. And then like same thing, like weakness on weakness. And so like I guess like which weakness is going to be the one that actually makes a couple of plays, because LSU's offensive line, we've talked about it. I mean, they're the best in the country. They got 2 first-round tackles. They've got guards that have started 30-plus games, each individually, and it's a unit that you've got to lean on. USC's defensive front's pretty good as well, but flip that, LSU's defensive line doesn't have a lot of depth, and they don't have a lot of production. Same thing for the USC offensive line. Like, which one of those groups is going to win? I think LSU is going to be very successful offensively. They're going to going back about running the ball like we talked about. Right. LSU, who only had to run inside zone last year because they had a cheat code in Jaden Daniels, that's no longer the case. You don't have that ability to run and have 1,000-yard rusher at quarterback. They're going to lean on their most important unit, which again is that offensive line. We saw counter in camp. We saw power. We saw everything. Pull lead. All of it's on the table, because if you go into this game and you dominate them on the line of scrimmage, I think you can make them quit. If you go out there with a purpose to run the football, and again, use your best asset against one of their best assets, and you keep winning those individual battles, you can make them tap out. But if you let USC high flying, throwing the football all over the place, makes you one-dimensional, LSU doesn't want to live there. Their defensive backs right now aren't good enough to live in that space. They have to dictate the pace of this game if they have any chance of winning an opener, which they have not won an opener since 2019. LSU is 0 for their last 4. There's seniors on this team that have not won an opening game. And they've won 10 games the last 2 years apiece. So you're fighting like hell just to get back to it, and credit to them. But guys, hey, imagine how easy it would be if we just didn't lose the opener. Right. It'd be a lot easier to win 10 games and not have to fight uphill all season. I mean, look, they're going 6-2 in the SEC, but not getting to, the playoff because, well, you lose that opening game, it's hard and you can't fight back. 10-2, yeah, we can have a conversation. 9-3, not so much.
Yeah, in this game, I mean, you got Caleb Williams is gone. You have Jalen, right? He's gone. You got now LSU has 2 new coordinators too. And I like the coordinator they brought in, Blake Baker from Missouri. Yeah. And in this game, so you got 2 veteran coaches, but you also got a new DC and Coach Lynn for USC. In a matchup game like this, kind of neutral site game in Vegas, who are you going to lean on, in this kind of coaching battle?
Yeah, it's really one of the questions of the game because there is a lot of new. LSU elevates their quarterback coach, the offensive coordinator. We know Lincoln Riley's going to be calling plays for USC, and so that gives them an advantage. I mean, that's one of the things he does really well. He's one of the best play callers in the country. I don't know. I'm kind of leaning on Blake Baker. And look, I love Lynn, but he's coming over from the NFL. He's had one season in college football. Now it was a great season. But look at UCLA, and they did improve. I don't want to besmirch them, but they played no Oregon and no Washington last year in the Pac-12, the two best offenses in the Pac-12. And so the numbers would look a little bit different, I think, if you played Michael Penix Jr. and Bo Nix. And then Blake Baker, when he got to Mizzou, they were 117 in total defense, I think, or somewhere around that range. He brought them to 33rd. So he did it in a one-year sample size at Mizzou. Bobby, you know I love Mizzou. M-I-Z almost, right? I love Coach Drink. LSU's got more Jimmies and Joes than Mizzou. So they have the ability to do the things that we're talking about and make a jump from 104 to 55. Bobby, we say it all the time. Just don't suck. Just don't be horrid. Just get a little bit better, help out an explosive offense. So for LSU, I will give the slight advantage to Blake Baker, but you got a lot you got to go out there and prove. And I expect him to be uber aggressive to try to get to the quarterback Miller Moss.
Yeah, it's the other side of the Iowa coin. Just don't be the worst, okay? If we can get you somewhere in the 50s and 60s, guys, we'll
hey, Iowa, just score an offensive touchdown. Don't count on a pick six. Just don't be the worst, and you'll make the playoff potentially.
One of the other games, Hester, in the SEC-ACC matchup that, you know, it's interesting with the line. I feel like Miami should be favored by a lot more with all the hype they're getting. Yeah. And talking to our guy, Roy Philpott, who was filling in for you yesterday, I mean, there's a lot of movement for the Gators in the swamp here to get this done. It's a win that they almost have to have given their schedule. But do you think they can get it done against the Miami team that a lot of people are touting as potentially the new ACC champs?
Yeah, I mean, Miami's got so much hype, and, you know, EJ obviously covering the ACC and the ACC network. He is right there on the hype train, but I have to see it, man. I have been fooled so many times. They fooled me more than NC State has fooled me. You got to go out there, and you have to show me the U is back. Hey, when you have a game in hand, take a knee, win the game. You were undefeated at that point last year. Your season spiraled after that. So yeah, I mean, I understand why Florida's getting a lot of juice in this game. Florida's a talented roster. The schedule's brutal. And I think that's why we don't really have a lot of high hopes for what they're going to do. They're still talented. It's in the swamp. It's going to be a fight like hell. So I'm not believing Miami until they show me. And when they show me, I'll raise my hand. I'll say, hey, I was wrong. But until then, I understand wholeheartedly why Florida is getting a lot of love in this game. And whoever loses that game, God bless you, and your rear end is going to be hot for the rest of the season.
Absolutely. And then the final thought here, Hester, before we get you out of here, I know you love you some West Virginia. Little Neil Brown came out of nowhere, getting no love again this year. 8-point dogs to Penn State, but it's in Morgantown. Hester, Morgantown and Baton Rouge, I feel like there's a lot of similarities with the type of person that you're going to get there. They shut down the campus not only today, but yesterday with our guy Pat McAfee going in. They've probably been hydrating their face off for the last 2 days. They got a chance to pull the upset here?
I think they're going to keep it close. I know last year did not go their way there in Happy Valley, but Morgantown is going to be a different place. You just mentioned all the things. They're going to be burning couches. They're going to be drinking bourbon. They are going to be drinking cold Coors Lights. They're going to be drinking every single thing that they can get their hands on to be ready for that game and show them what Morgantown is all about. Garrett Green is QB2 on the all-Meathead team that you and I put together. I cannot wait to watch him grow as a player. He was so good last year, ran for over 800 yards. They had 3 guys on this team that ran for over 800 yards. Not many teams can say that. They know thyself, and they are going to try and impose their will on a team that not many teams are able to do that against in Penn State. But I like them to cover. We'll see if they can get the outright win.
All right, Hester, I'm going to let you go. You need to take a break, get some rest. We got off campus coming up here later today. Don't be heading back downstairs now. I know that roulette table. Keep that money in the pocket. It's burning a hole in there for you. Get some rest. Draw up some more flag football plays to make sure you're going to be ready to go. And thanks for coming on with us.
Yeah, the first ever fullback dive in flag football history will be run here in a couple weeks.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. It's Jacob Hester.
All right, boys.
One of the best.
See you, man.
I appreciate it. He's one of the best, man. You can follow him. I believe Jacob Hester 18 on X, off the bench down in Louisiana, and SiriusXM off campus every day, 3 to 6. Coming up next, we got our headlines brought to you by Affinity. We're going to break down this Akron game dive into it, what the Buckeyes need to do, what they can expect next on the Bobby Carpenter Show. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Bobby Carpenter. I want to give a huge thank you and a shout out to Affinity Whole Health, the leaders in the testosterone replacement industry. I've been on a testosterone replacement program for a few years right now, and I've got to tell you, it's been an absolute game changer. Affinity Whole Health has allowed me to be the best version of myself, both mentally and physically. I loved how easy it was to get started. I booked my free consultation, met with my prescriber, checked my numbers, and Affinity Whole Health designed a program that was customized to fit my needs. So I'm telling you guys, if you have low energy, you want to get rid of that spare tire around the waist or take it to the next level in the bedroom, Affinity Whole Health is the place to get started. So don't wait any longer. 5 minutes of your time, book your free consultation. You're going to love the way you feel. All right, Schlegs, here we are. It is the headlines, and they are brought to you by our friends at Affinity Whole Health. They're the leaders in the testosterone and hormone replacement therapy industry. And you know what? They're here to help you get the best version of yourself out. They want to break it out of their Schlegs, whether you're struggling with weight loss, low energy, muscle loss, poor sleep, whatever you want to do to become the best version of yourself. Affinity, they are here to help. Their experts will help you meet your needs, meet your plans, develop a customized plan that is right there for you. They've got Ohio covered. They're in Cleveland. They're in Columbus. Heck, they're in Indy. They're in Chicago. Wherever you're watching, they've got opportunities for you. They do such a great job. I've been a patient there for 7 years. So go check them out at affinitywholehealth.com and let them bring out the best in you. All right, Schlegs, we've got Akron on the slate, 2-10 each of the last 2 years. Joe Moorhead, former head coach. Been a couple different places, bounced around. He was at Oregon when they ran that dreaded crack toss on Ohio State a handful of times. He was at Penn State as the coordinator for James Franklin, so he's familiar with the Buckeyes. He understands the horseshoe, understands everything that's going on. He's been here before. He understands it. What do you think that we'll be seeing out of this Akron team?
I think we're going to be seeing a team that's going to be just unmatched from the jump. I think you got a very veteran Ohio State team that's ready to play. They've been hitting each other. You got competitive excellence going on since January, basically. I mean, they're ready to go. I've already had to say on WCOL that I predicted 70-3. And why did I even give them 3? I don't know, just in case, right? A guy kicks a field goal. I don't know. But I just think these guys are ready to perform. And we talked about it, Bob. Leave no doubt, take them out. It doesn't matter who's out there. Every time I go out, I got to show out Juicy J style. And that's what they want to do. My biggest thing is not necessarily what Akron's going to be able to do. It's what I want to see. And that is just our physical presence up front. You got a very veteran defensive line. You have 3 returning guys from our team offensively last year on the O-line. You got Seth that's in there at center. You have now Tegra that's going to be starting at the right guard position. I want to see them. I want to see how they impose their will moving the line of scrimmage more so than anything that I could possibly fathom seeing from Akron.
Yeah, I think what you're going to see from Akron on offense as far as what they're going to do, they'll throw it some to get the ball out. They'll do some screens. They'll do some deep overs. They'll run some quarterback counter, get him involved in the mix. They have a variety of gap run schemes. They're going to try to get downhill and be physical. I don't think they'll be able to do that. And once they realize that Ohio State, they're going to score, I think this will be a run game where they'll try to drag it out, stall it, and try to limit damage. You look defensively, I'm not sure how you try to defend Ohio State with everything they have. They'll probably try to junk up the run game, blitz a lot, move around. They don't have the size to be able to stick to it. So it wouldn't surprise me to see a negative yardage play here or there, but it's going to be up to the offensive line to handle some of those stunts, handle some of that movement, probably try to confuse Will Howard. And I think Chip probably keeps it simple. They do a lot of wall down, kick out, get Judkins, get Trey downhill early and often. And then I think you'll see some play action shots. I don't think this is going to be a situation, Schlegs, where in the past people were talking about Ohio State throwing it more, 55, 60%. I think this could even flip it back to where maybe this is a primary run team running at 55 to 60% and then taking some of those shots over the top. to, a Chris Olave, to a Emeka Egbuka, to a Carnell Tate, to Jeremiah Smith, and taking advantage of the coverage that they'll get behind it, because I think these people are going to have to load up to ultimately try to stop the run.
Well, you're going to see that through Will Howard, right? That's a different dynamic than we've had recently. And him being able to, like you said, play action pass, being able to take it and run it, right? Again, that goes back to, can the offensive line protect? We have to see that, right? Setting up the run, him being able to run on the perimeter, that's going to have to keep linebackers at home that are obviously going to open up those crossing routes, the deep routes off a play action pass, because you're going to be trying to put 8 in the box. You really got to pick your poison when you do this. I'm with you. Try to stop the run.
Like, Schlegs? What's your favorite?
What? Favorite what?
Favorite poison. You said you got to pick your poison.
Well, it just depends on what it is, right? So, I mean, if it's a vice, right, I'd rather go with bourbon over beer. Like, if it's sitting there, I'd rather, smoke a Blackie Mild and maybe a nicotine pouch and like ride a tractor versus going out to the club. I don't know. It's just got to pick it. But, here it's like, do I want to stop the run or do I want to stop the pass? A lot easier to stop the run. We saw this too. I remember, I think it was last year versus Rutgers, right? Yeah. Rutgers, they were blitzing from a bunch of different places. Like, they're going to take their shot. And if you happen to beat them, you're going to gouge them, right? But they're going to have to do something with the players that they have. I also remember the last time Akron was here in the shoe, and it was just an absolute blowout. It was like playing a way lesser FCS school. So that's just kind of my expectation, not because of what Akron's bringing in, but because of the talent that Ohio State has on their current roster. And then defensively, guys, I just want to see people playing fast, hard, and violent. I think that they're going to be able to do that.
Is there a score prediction, something you'd like to throw out? The Buckeyes are about 50-point favorites. I think the over-unders 58. I mean, I don't think this is going to be a year where Ryan tries to hang 70 on people in the non-conference or in games that they can blow them out. They're going to want to get a lot of guys in, but you also aren't going to tell those guys you're not allowed to score or make plays.
Yeah, I mean, you saw Cam Rising. One thing from Utah that I wanted to see was Cam Rising coming back for his 7th year because he got hurt last year. And he had like 250 yards and 5 touchdowns in the first half. Now, that was Southern Utah, maybe a little lesser opponent than Akron. Okay, I don't know. We'll see that. Akron's been 2-10 the past 2 years. But I think here's the deal. When you throw the twos out there, Bob, and you and I have seen the twos in practice, hey, You're not just going to go out there and say, hey, listen, don't score. You're just going to run the plays. I see our twos breaking open and making touchdowns. So, yeah, I said 70-3. Not that you actually want that. Could be 63-3. Don't see there's going to be any field goals. I think we're going to score early and often, but it's going to be high score. I think you're going to have the over on this.
I think you will. I think you'll have the over. I think Ohio State covers, because here's the reality. This defense is so good and so deep. Yes. I mean, if you're talking even about playing 10 defensive linemen, you bring in your backup, your younger linebackers. I think you're going to probably see a ton of C.J. Hicks, Sonny Styles, and obviously Cody Simon. And, we'll see kind of how that rotation looks, because I know James has kind of cross-trained them all. But that next group of guys, the Arvell Reese, Valley, you've got Gabe Powers, Peyton Pierce, like those guys are going to get in there. And I think that they're going to be more than adequate, more than sufficient. They'll be playmakers, and it's the same goes with the younger defensive back. So I like this game. I'd say 56-3. I don't think they get in the end zone. Maybe they get one field goal, but I don't think that there's going to be scoring aplenty for the Akron Zips as they look at this. All right, we're long for a break. We got our tailgate talk. Answer some of your questions next. Some rules about redshirting, I think, that might change it up, and a couple other things we're going to dive into here on the Bobby Carpenter Show.
We were called soft last year. You don't want to be soft, especially when you come to the playoffs. So that's going to be a process throughout this season of establishing us as a harder team here in the
They're off in the Kentucky Derby as Authentic takes them around the far turn. 'Tis the Laws making his move now, and they're into the stretch. These two stride for stride. Authentic, 'tis the Law. Here's the wire.
I don't buy into this nonsense, this conspiracy nonsense that he's got his money and he's dogging it. That's ridiculous.
All right, Schlegs. Couple quick questions here that we're going to get to from Tailgate Talk. Number one, you were the strength coach at Ohio State for a number of years. Came back, helped out this offseason. Oftentimes, the strength coach is the get-back coach. Can you explain to me what exactly the get-back coach is, who it is, what they do, and why they're so vital to the success of any great football team?
Guys, let me tell you something. There's no greater honor.
Up of this, Schlegs found this on the internet, and this just happened to be him cruising around.
No greater honor than to be the get-back coach. No, it's honestly the worst job in all of sports, where for 3 hours you just tell all the AYOs and the coaches to get back. It's why you're constantly, even at practice, like, get back, like you have to back up. You have to do these things like. No, the real worst job in all of college sports is the strength coach that's also responsible for special team substitutions, a.k.a. the picture that you see here. That was my role for Coach Meyer at the time. And when this fan decided to trespass at Ohio Stadium, I'm sitting there counting who was on offense because we had punt coming, right? So I had 3 guys that are on offense. Boom, they're out there. I'm good. If a coach takes them off, starts talking to them, they're supposed to be out there. Guess whose face gets melted off by the head coach? No, not the special team coach. This guy. I'm not even in the meetings. I'm just making sure they're out there. But when he ran on, the only reason I saw him was because I was counting guys. Then I look at Mick. I look back. I look at Mick. He gives me the eyebrows like what are you going to do? Boom. Switch flipped. Tackle. Off the field. Next play. And that's what it is. It's terrible. So for 3 hours, all you do is yell, get back. You got to tell coaches, hey, you've already been warned. Get back. Why? They're grown-ass men. Do it yourself. Just stand behind the doomajig. I got to stand behind the white line at a 7th grade football game. We got warned last time. I was like, guys, get back. I'm like, I'm having flashbacks from telling people to get back for years on the sideline. So anyways, not good.
Y'all don't know me like that? Is that what you – that guy obviously didn't know you like that. I mean,
no, he didn't.
The dude right there, like he had no idea what he was getting into.
Yeah, for 10-year anniversary, baby.
Yeah, that's the ultimate get back in the stands because you have no business being down here. Stay behind. Did you tell him? Were you whispering stay behind the white as you slammed him?
Stay behind the line. Stay behind the line. This wouldn't happen to you.
All right, one of the other things that happen, people always ask you, what's it like to be a player? Where do they stay? What goes on? Well, for a long time, the players stayed at the Blackwell. They do the Skull Session Walk. That's where we always stayed. They built the Fisher Business College. And I think 2000-ish one. It was finished when we got to school here in 2002. I'm not sure if they stayed there the year before or not. On my visit, we stayed downtown at the Hyatt, or the Sheraton was connected to the City Center. City Center no longer there, but they're moving the players from the Blackwell now, Schlegs, to downtown, get a little quieter, away from maybe some of the noise. They've got some bigger conference rooms. It's a little bit easier designed, and it's just not kind of in the middle. And it's only 10 minutes away, but it's just not in the middle of all the chaos.
That, and they're going to be wearing sweats. And honestly, the only thing that matters are, you still go to the golf course for the meal on Friday. Like, I mean, honestly, that's the best. The pecan rolls, all the ice cream that I used to grab from everybody else. I was like, hey, why don't you order the chocolate? You order the chocolate. You order the chocolate. I'll eat all y'all's chocolate. Anyways, so I understand, because remember we used to do the walkthrough in the fields, regardless of how cold it was outside. Now you're in a ballroom-esque. You have plenty of space.
Plus,
you'll be able to do that there.
They also, across from the business school, so that's part of the problem, is like there's nowhere to do a walkthrough inside. So if it's rain and stuff, like what are you doing? But they also put kind of like a pavilion and did some finishing to that field there across, right beside Jesse Owens North and across from Fall Hall, or across from Gerlach Hall. So yeah, there's not the space there to be able to do it anymore. And then also you have to go to Fall Hall for the meeting. So you're always walking around outside. There's a lot of people, folks staying down there, Schlegs. You got parents upstairs. I mean, one of our teammates, his parents that was in the linebacker room, his parents always get a hotel room up there. And he might go up and see him, and there are people just drinking, hanging out, and all that stuff. So like, you get your guys away from that. Also, so remember, you'd hear like the random stuff at night because the dorms are right by there, and there'd just be drunks walking around, the zombies outside. You're like, hey, you got a noon, you got a Michigan game tomorrow, okay? It's noon. We'll be up at 6:30. This isn't, hey, we can wake up at 10:30, roll out of bed, and go get it done. So that's another piece. And then one last little nugget that the NCAA made a ruling that seemed fairly common sense. We started talking about red shirting. It used to be you could play like in the first 3 or 4 games and then red shirt if you got hurt or whatever. And then they kind of said you could do, first 3 or 4. I don't know if you needed an injury. Well, then they said, hey, you can play 4 regardless throughout the season, so you can spread guys around. And if you have an injury or something and you've only played a guy 1 or 2 games, then that guy can come back and play later in the year. Well, they just made the announcement too that postseason games won't count. So during your 12 regular season games, you can play in 4 of them and not lose your red shirt. Then you can also play in a conference championship game and up to 4 playoff games. So in theory, you could get 9 games a year and still maintain your red shirt strikes, which I think is great for player development.
Well, it's great for player development. It's also great for player engagement, right? Yeah. In the year of the portal and everything that's going on. And I mean, keep feeding that dog a bone, but also you get to see them develop. You get to see the talent that you have coming back on your roster. That's critical, because if you only have 4, and I'm not saying this for Ohio State, I'm saying it for basically the AYOs, you get to see what you got. And it's like, do I got to go into a transfer portal? I only got to see this guy lie bullets for 4 games. Oh, now I got to see him, for 9 games. Like, I don't need to go get somebody else. I know exactly what I have, and I want that guy. I'd rather invest in the people that we've been developing here at the university than going out and bringing somebody else in that doesn't understand our culture. I think it's great for the people that they have on campus and development of the athlete.
It is good. It's going to be big, fantastic. And, I think it's a great opportunity. Like you said, it keeps the guys hungry. So, hey, when your team starts playing, you start winning, you can maintain your red shirt. You can be a part of that championship run, and it doesn't burn a year for you. So I think it's a great opportunity. It's pretty tremendous, pretty terrific. NCAA finally getting something right. Put a pin in it. We got our dude of the week coming back here on the Bobby Carpenter Show.
Well, how do they know I'm doing this? Did somebody leak this out?
It's social media.
Oh.
That's the way social media works now.
I thought maybe you were just running that yap.
Welcome to Big Play, a sports media team that started back in 2014, and now we're not in a garage. Look at us, incorporating some of Cleveland's favorite sports personalities, bringing you fun and compelling content from downtown Cleveland. Coming to you live from the shores of Lake Erie and Burke Lakefront Airport, join Team Big Play for all the best sports talk in Ohio. Check us out on social media at Big Play, bringing you fun and compelling content from downtown Cleveland.
All right, now we've got our dude of the week, and special thanks to our sponsors here, Affinity Whole Health, to Garage Beer, hanging out with us. Be sure to drink responsibly, obviously. As always, it's going in this college football weekend, Labor Day weekend. Going to be a lot of fun. Celebrate the greatness that is America. Schlegs, who's your dude of the week?
Dude of the week, Kyle for Georgia Tech linebacker, 10 tackles, helped hold Florida State to less than 100 yards rushing. Number 10 in the country, goes down in Ireland. Huge neck roll, huge fan. Dude of the week.
All right, my dude of the week, it's tragic what happened today in the loss of life. Johnny Gaudreau, Johnny Hockey. He's my guy. He picked Columbus, Ohio to ultimately come here and play for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Tremendous human being. I feel like prayers go out to his family. His sister lost 2 brothers. His parents lost 2 of their sons on a day that was supposed to be a celebration for her wedding. Absolutely tragic. So keep them in your prayers. We've got Akron coming up. Put a pin in that. Stay locked in here on the Bobby Carpenter Show.